written and recorded by Dipika Mummery. We'd just started to walk our usual route around Highfield when Mo dropped his bombshell. We were shuffling through the snow across the little field between the Fallowfield Loop and the park. I was thinking about a scorching day last summer, coming out with our Save Highfield Park signs, an orange ice lolly dripping down my arm, the other protesters clumping together in the shade. Then Mo dragged me back to the freezing present. "Neena," he said, not looking at me as we walked side by side, my arm through his as usual. "I think we should move away, out of Manchester." I thought he was joking, of course. He was a funny man, Mo. Funny ha-ha, I mean. I was gullible as anything. You wouldn't believe the number of times he tricked me into believing stupid things because of how serious he could act. Like when he claimed he'd spotted a puma chasing a runner through Highfield. He got it from his dad, Ahmed. 2 days after I first met Mo's parents in London, he said that Ahmed wasn't actually a spy embedded in the Brick Lane community, rooting out possible terrorists. He really was just a carpet seller. So Mo said what he said about moving away, and all I could think was that it was one of his gags. "Why?" I said. "Committed a murder, have you? Or won the lottery on the sly?" I poked him in the side. "You've kept that quiet." "No, Neena," he said. It wasn't a joke, because he gave a short, sharp laugh, then stopped and looked me in the eyes. "I've applied for a new job, in Newcastle, and they've offered it to me. I need to let them know in the next few days." I stared at him. I've lived in Manchester for nearly all of my adult life. I met Mo while I was living in a dodgy flat share in Moss Side, and he was in a fancy city centre flat. We moved to Levy years ago, because it was cheap, yes, but also because the house was right by the park. I was prone to anxiety, and being in a green space calmed me. I could feel the familiar black shroud settling over me now, and I swallowed. There wasn't much green to be seen under the snow. "Say something," my mind screamed. I kept staring at Mo, thinking how funny he looked in his white puffer coat and red woolly hat, like a Bakewell tart. So I said the only thing I could think of. "You look like a Bakewell tart in that coat and hat." It was his turn to stare at me. His expression said, "What are you on about, Neena?" I saw it a lot, to be perfectly honest, and not just from him. I babble when I'm nervous. I turned away and carried on into the park. There was a path that took us further from the loop and along the brook that Mo had jumped into, like a dog, on that stupidly hot day last year. He dropped his trainers on the path and leapt straight in, then splashed cool water at me. "Come on, it's too cold to stand around," I said. I needed to get the blood flowing through my brain so I could explain why I couldn't just move away. "What job? Why?" I asked, trying not to sound anxious. "Why on earth didn't you say anything? I could very well be furious at you, you know." Shamefaced, he caught up with me. "I know. I honestly didn't think I'd get it, Neens. It's a senior role at an indie production company. Fork Tyne, they're called. They've done some great stuff. Remember that eco-spy drama? I'd be working on some amazing projects with more independence." He looked at me hopefully. I only nodded. It did sound good. Mo was a producer for the BBC and had loads of experience, but he kept getting frustrated by his higher-ups micromanaging him, ever watchful for non-existent mistakes. Luckily, I didn't have that problem. I was the only person on my team who could do my job, although that came with its own issues. I mostly worked from home, and on high-stress days, I went for a run around the park to calm down. How could I leave it behind? My brain couldn't compute it. Our roots had been well and truly put down in Lev, thrusting through the tarmac like the Manchester skyscrapers sprouting in the other direction. But why Newcastle? I asked. There's loads of production companies around Manchester now. He was quiet for a moment. I kept my eyes on the path, watching out for squirrels. I knew the snow wouldn't keep them away. Sometimes when I came out on my own, I'd take a bag of nuts for them, even though they were only the grey immigrant squirrels pushing out the noble English red ones. They were only trying to survive. Mo began talking about needing a change, a new start somewhere else. My mind drifted. It was all so familiar. We'd said the same things when deciding where to buy a house. In Wales, closer to my mum, or that London, near Mo's parents. But after all the debate, we ended up staying in Manchester. We belonged here. We both knew what it was like to feel like outsiders. It wasn't like that in Lev. It's so diverse. Mo's parents were Pakistani. My dad was Indian, my mum Welsh. We made a funny pair. Mo, the handsome hotshot TV exec, and me, the green-haired charity worker, with all my plants and obscure records. I never thought someone like him would be my cup of tea. But we hit it off. We both had a daft sense of humour, a nostalgia for old video games. And we both knew what it was like to not quite belong. Mo was still talking. I tried to listen, I really did. But in my head, I began lining up the perfectly practical reasons to stay in Lev. The lowish cost of living, the green spaces, the regular public transport to Manchester and Stockport, the largely friendly local community. Then I realised that I was going to come off like an estate agent. It wouldn't be long before I was calling Levy the new Chorlton. Still, there was the park. Our park. Who knew how much of it would be left if the council kept selling bits off to developers? But that was one reason to stay. We were trying to fight back, keep the park intact. It needed me. Us. Mo stopped walking just as the path formed a T-junction. Left for the loop, right to go further into the park. You're not listening, Neena. He looked frustrated. Sorry, I can't imagine moving. This is my home, our home. It's a shock, all of this. And there isn't much time to decide, is there? He looked at me guiltily then. No, by Tuesday. 3 days to think about it. Although we'd have 2 months before I start work. He opened his arms for a hug. I'm sorry. I shuffled into his embrace and pretended to take a bite out of his coat. I always dreamt of eating a Bakewell tart bigger than me, I said, and he laughed and pretended to punch me in the shoulder. At least I could still make him laugh. But what if I couldn't do it? Go to Newcastle? Who would make Mo laugh then? There was a harsh squawk. We looked up and saw a flash of green streaking through the leaden sky. Parakeet, I said. We watched the birds settle in the top of a tree. I'd seen them in Highfield before, but this parakeet looked even more out of place among the leafless branches. Poor thing. He, or she, must be freezing. Nah, Mo said. They're from the Himalayas originally. Snow's in their DNA. Levy's practically tropical to them. I can see why they came here then, I said. Mo shook his head. They didn't choose to come here. They were brought over as pets, decades ago. Then there was a huge fuss about parrots fever, and they were released into the wild. Or they escaped. Either way, it was bloody irresponsible. They might push out the other species, the ones who've been here all along. That's not their fault, though. They're only over here because the British were over there. True. He looked at me. Neens, think about Newcastle, yeah? I know it's a huge decision. A huge move. Have a look at the houses, the jobs you could do there. I nodded. I should have been outraged that he'd gone and done this thing behind my back. But it was hard to be angry with him, because I could see he really wanted it. And I knew what it was like to feel the pull of another place, another possible home. Over the next 2 days, I debated with Mo. I went online and looked at jobs, houses and parks, tried to imagine myself there. I ran it past my 2 best friends. They looked at each other, then suggested that it was worth considering. I rang my mum, who only complained about litter being blown into her garden. I watched an old episode of Escape to the Country, where the couple had £500,000 to throw away on a house just outside Newcastle, and thoroughly despised them both. I went for a run through Highfield, trying to look at the park objectively, finding all its flaws, telling myself that I wouldn't miss it so much. The fateful day came. We went for another park walk, the same route as last time, neither of us speaking. I kept an eye out for parakeets, but there was no flash of green where we'd seen one the other day. We headed towards Levenshulme Waterfall. It wasn't an actual waterfall, just water dribbling into what looked like a puddle 2 feet down, but some joker had added it to Google Maps, and other jokers had left rave reviews and photos of the breathtaking beauty of the falls. We'd been in hysterics the first time we read them. Today, there were no tourists admiring our famous waterfall, but Mo finally asked the dreaded question as we went past. "Neens, what am I going to say to them?" I stayed quiet as we carried on to the wider, newly resurfaced path that ran between the park and the golf course. "It's not that I hate it here or anything," he said. "I know you don't. But it'll be good for us to have a change. And my career needs this, so much. Look, if it doesn't work out, we can always come back. Lev will still be here." "But what about the park?" I said. This time, I couldn't sound calm. "Who will fight for the park? Is that what you're worried about? The group will get by without us. There'll be other parks, other campaigns to join." We passed the stables. We were on a lane now, Nelstrop Road. There was a lone brown horse in a jaunty yellow coat in the adjoining field, backed by old blocks of flats. The horse looked as if it was contemplating life, love and the universe, so mournful were its eyes. I could empathise. "Isn't it mad that this used to be an industrial estate?" I said. I gestured at the fields to our left, and the new housing estate on the right. There was a clay pit here to make bricks in the same place, so they didn't have to lug the clay miles away. At some point, there was a place that bleached and dyed cotton too, in the Industrial Revolution. Kind of like a backwards version of "I remember when this was all fields." You don't get that very often, do you? Nature taking over from humans. I glanced at Mo sideways, realising that I was babbling again. "I want to stay until the park's taken over from us?" Well, it sounded stupid put like that. "I want to be sure it can look after itself." My chest felt tight. We were in a bind. If we left, I would be miserable. If we stayed, Mo would be miserable. Either way, we would make each other miserable too. "Neena, it might never be safe from the developers. That's the way of the world. We do what we can, but some battles can't be won." I could feel my eyes starting to sting, but I pressed on anyway. We skirted around the edge of the park, then went back in. It was snowing again by then. I loved this bit, even though you could see the new build houses just behind it, making the place look untidy. Volunteers had been rewilding what had once been a big patch of mud. There were planters that bloomed in the warmer months, and a wild garden with little winding paths. There was even a tiny pond to attract frogs and so on. If we left, I would miss coming here at different times of year, seeing what was blooming and what was still waiting for the right time to emerge. But maybe Mo was right. Maybe it would be good to have a change. Save another park, perhaps. I tried to see things from his perspective. I thought about how we'd ended up in Levy. It was all my doing. I kept telling myself that we'd decided together, but the truth of it was that I saw the house and the park, and came up with 1,000,001 reasons why Wales and London were totally unsuitable. Mo was here because of me, and now he wanted to fly away. But at least he didn't want to go alone. The thought reminded me of The Legend of Zelda, the old Nintendo game, which I played to death as a kid. There's a bit where an old man tells the hero, Link, that he needs a sword. It's dangerous to go alone, I said aloud. Take this, Mo finished straight away, and we laughed. He took my hand, although we both had gloves on. I couldn't feel the warmth of his palm through 2 layers of fabric, but I knew it was there. Just then, there was a familiar screech and a parakeet dashed across the sky. Then there was another lime green flash, and suddenly there were 2 parakeets in the denuded tree above us. They pecked at each other softly like they were joking around. I was glad that they had each other, that there wasn't just one lonely parakeet looking for a friend in this man-made park far from home. Mo squeezed my hand. I squeezed back without looking at him. We stood there for a while, watching the birds. All right then, I said, quietly, so I didn't disturb the parakeets. All right. Mo kissed the back of my glove. The parakeets dashed off, and the snowfall thickened. We set off again towards home.
Parakeet, written and recorded by Dipika Mummery, with music by Oscilloscope, and the series editor was Richard V. Hurst. You Are Here is produced by Levenshulme Old Library. It was commissioned by The Space and made possible with support from Arts Council England.